till 272 basically. Let's begin with 264. Most of you probably know the verse, so I'll just explain the meaning and then we'll recite it together, okay? So Krishna is telling, Raga Dvesha Vimuktaistu. He says when we are going on a path, there will be some attraction, there will be some aversions. But don't get captivated by what we are attracted to. And don't get irritated by what we are averse to. So Raga Dvesha Vimuktaistu. Be free from it. And Vishayan Indriyaish Charan. That we remember yesterday we talked about the senses and sense objects. That we need to create some boundaries. Sometimes the sense objects come toward the senses. Sometimes the senses go toward the sense objects. So this word charan, this is not the Sanskrit charan. Charan is feet. Charan is like charana, grazing. The senses are always looking for sense objects and they keep chasing after them, to find them, to contemplate them, to chew on them and to consume them. So this charan is the word that correlates, according to some commentators, with kim vrajeta kim. So vrajeta is to move. Charan is also to mentally move. We physically move, but it's more mentally move. So when our senses move toward the sense objects, in our mind we imagine indulging in sense objects. So Atma Vashair Vidhe Atma. We need to have self-control, and then how do we get the self-control? Vidhe Atma, by following scripture, Prasadam Adhigacchati. In this way we will attain some mercy. What is that prasad we will discuss. So basically, yesterday I had drawn this diagram, but I'll just repeat it over here. So we are on a particular path. And at the end of this path is what we'll get as the prasad. The mercy. We'll see what this mercy exactly is. But while we are going along this path, there are certain things for which we will have raga. Means the senses will want to move in this direction. That is raga. And there are certain objects towards which we will have dvesha. Like say we are going along a road, and when we are walking along the road, if there is some very foul smell, maybe there is some factory over there, or maybe there is some sewage plant is there, and terrible smell comes over there. So that creates like a force by which you just feel, I don't want to go along this road, you are just thrown out of it. I just want to be, I don't want to be here. So raga and dvesha. So raga pulls us in a particular direction, dvesha pushes us away from a particular direction. Say, if somebody we come to a temple, we come to a satsang, but there is some person we don't like at all. We've had a quarrel with that person. And then we come and we will be sitting and hearing a class, we will be taking darshan, but then, or we will be participating in kirtan, suddenly we are talking with someone, and suddenly we hear the voice of that person. As soon as we hear that voice, what happens? Why is this person here? What is he doing? Why is he so happy? So our mind gets completely consumed by that. So basically, raga and dvesha both can be distractors. Raga distracts by saying, this is so wonderful. Dvesha distracts by saying, this is so dreadful. Both ways we get distracted. So we discussed about yesterday about choosing our battles, isn't it? That if you can win a small battle but lose a big war, or win a small battle but lose a bigger battle, that's not very healthy. You remember I talked about sledging yesterday? Like you hit one sixer, but you get so excited that you try to hit another sixer and get out. So you tried to prove a point, maybe hit one sixer, but then would have stayed on and scored much more, but we didn't do that. So the similar principle is being talked over here, that raga and dvesha. These emotions will be there, but raga dvesha vimuktaistu. Now vimuktaistu means, yes, those may be there, but we don't let them control us. And vishayan indriyaish charan. So because of these raga and dvesha, Our senses move towards certain things and our senses move away from certain things. So Vishayan Indriyeshcharan Atmavashya, keep them under control. And then Vidheyatma, according to scripture, move in a particular direction. When we vidhi scripture, then prasadam adhigachyati. We will attain mercy. We'll see what prasadam means exactly. Let's come to that. But let's recite the verse together 3 times. Ragadvesha vimuktaisthu Vishayan Indriyaishcharan Atmavashyair Vidheyatma Prasadam Adhigachyati. Ragadvesha vimuktaisthu Vishayan Indriyaishcharan Atmavashyair Vidheyatma Prasadam Adhigachyati. Ragadvesha vimuktaisthu Vishayan Indriyaishcharan Atmavashyair Vidheyatma Prasadam Adhigachyati. So here what's happening is that yesterday we discussed the principle of how there are outer enemies, and it's like we create a boundary so that the outer enemy doesn't come in. But now we're going to talk about the inner enemies, the spies that are there, the traitors that are there, and we need to deal with them. So how do we go about dealing with them? When Krishna is talking about raga and dvesha, is this an inner enemy or outer enemy? It's inner, isn't it? It's already inside us. So if we consider, say, any major war that has happened, whether we consider, say, India-Bangladesh or India-Pakistan had a fight where Bangladesh was split, or the Second World War started in UK, Germany was conquering various parts. It conquered Poland, it conquered France, it was on a rampage conquering various things. So should Britain fight with Germany or not? Should America enter into the First World War, Second World War or not? These are decisions. So whenever a war is to happen, whenever a battle is to happen, or rather a war is supposed to happen, there are forces who may support the war, there are forces who may oppose the war in that particular country itself. Like say Israel is now fighting with the Hamas and the Hezbollah. Now there are some Israelis who say that, we should fight more, we should hit them harder. And there are some Israelis who say that, the harder we are going to hit them, the more hostile they are going to become. And the more they will, this fight will go on. We should stop fighting and we should try to come to negotiations. They have our hostages, we should get them back. So basically, there will always be different opinions. Just because a war is going to happen doesn't mean that everybody is going to agree to the war. Like in India's history itself, when India was going to gain independence, we didn't know that we would gain independence. But in 1940s, Gandhiji wanted to campaign peacefully. And Subhash Chandra Bose said that we want to have an army, we want to have an armed resistance. So there's a big split. And eventually Subhash Chandra Bose, he was also part of the Congress, he left the Congress. And now historians are still debating to some extent who was actually responsible for the victory. Now, the mainstream narrative is that Gandhiji was brought about the independence, but many British officers, they say that actually it was the armed rebellion which made the British decide we have to leave. There are some who say actually after Second World War Britain had become weakened, so whether it was Gandhi or Bose or neither of them, still British would have left. So now who is right? It's difficult to say. Of course, everybody may be partisan of some way and they say that we did this, we did that. But my point is that there is, even in a serious war, there may not be unanimity. You know the word unanimity? Unanimous. Unanimous means everybody agrees. So the idea is that when a war happens, there may not be unanimity. That everybody may not agree that we have to fight. Sometimes it may be there. But many times before a war happens, there may not be unanimity. But then, even if there is no unanimity, there has to be some hierarchy. Hierarchy means this is the head of the state, this is the president, this is the prime minister decided, then everybody has to fall in place. At that time at least. Okay, we may have our differences of opinion, but now we are fighting a war, let us fight it together. Afterwards we will resolve our differences. So unanimity means everybody agrees, hierarchy means There's one authority, that authority decides, and then everybody falls in place. So even when an army is advancing, some soldiers in the army may say, no, let's rush forward and attack the enemy right away. Some soldiers may, let's wait and watch. Let's decide, what is the opposite army's strength, what are they planning to do, which part are they going to attack. And some people will say, let's encircle them, and then we'll crush them, whatever. So even in actually fighting a war, there could be different opinions. And we cannot crush the presence of different opinions. But even if there are different opinions, when actually the war is happening, there has to be some coordination. So if there is unanimity, that is good. If there is not, hierarchy means there is coordination, okay? This is what we have decided to do, this is what we are going to do. If that doesn't happen, it is going to be a big problem. So we could say that in the war in our consciousness, this is our consciousness. Now, Raga may want us to go in this direction. Dvesha may want us to not go in a particular direction, go in the opposite direction. But the vidhi is the direction. The direction which we have got, the instruction, the guideline, the inspiration that we have got from scripture, that has to be stronger. So this is where the vidhi, this becomes greater than the rag and greater than the dvesha. So by that we can move forward in a particular direction. Say today is Ekadashi. Now we may be fasting for certain foods. Some of us may like Ekadashi food, some of us may not like Ekadashi food. But if the vidhi is there, our mind may say, oh, when Ekadashi and I would like to eat some grains. Our mind may say, okay, if only that particular food item was made, that would be so nice on Ekadashi. Why is that not made? Why is this made? So all these thoughts will be there. They may be there, but the vidhi means, this is where I am going to go. This is what I am going to do. This Ekadashi, I am going to fast from these foods. That kind of clarity has to be there. So Krishna says in this particular verse, vidheya atma. And how can we follow the vidhi? To some extent, the raga and dvesha need to be, they may be there, but they cannot be in control. They need to be controlled. See, another way to understand is that we were talking with someone. We go to a get-together, a party, some event. We're talking with different people over there. And say we meet somebody who has got leprosy. And their face has quite a prominent scar. Now maybe initially when we see it, we will be taken aback. Maybe they don't look particularly attractive. And although there will be a mental reaction, if we are a little bit cultured, we won't show it too much, isn't it? Although it's not, dvesha is a very strong word for it, but there may be we will be taken aback. There may be some dvesha in the sense of a negative reaction. Their face might not be very pleasant to look at. But if we understand, okay, this is also an important person in our team, we are working on this project together, then we will try that dvesha, we will subordinate it. And we will work. We will focus on, okay, what are we here for? Now if somebody is working on a project and there's some person who is, maybe some female who is very attractive. Now even material circles, even people are dating or people are flirting or whatever, staring at someone continuously is considered impolite. So if you're gone for a project, you have to be professional. There's a time for, so raga, one may get completely, somebody goes for somebody is a doctor and they are treating a patient and there is a attractive nurse over there and the doctor starts flirting with the nurse while the patient is dying. That would be ridiculous, isn't it? So the vidhi is, okay, you have to take care of the patient, and okay, even if the patient, doctor and nurse want to date, they can do that on their time. When you have to do a work, you have to do the work. So even in our day-to-day life, raga and dvesha, we need to subordinate that. So vidhi is the word. Vidhi can refer to scripture, it can refer to instruction. Vidheya atma, we follow some higher principle and thus we regulate raga and dvesha. So this is the broad direction of this verse. Now what happens by this is prasad. So prasad means mercy, it means purity, but specifically if you look at it in the context of what is going on. We discussed earlier that on one side we want to protect our senses, create boundaries, but that's not enough. We also don't also just to defend, we also want to win the war. See, win the war means what? We have to function in the world. There's a saying that ships are safest in the dockyard, but ships are not meant to be in the dockyard. Isn't it? Maybe our car stays the best when it is in a nice safe garage. But a car is not meant for the garage only, isn't it? Car is meant for driving. So similarly, we may say that, okay, if there can be boundaries and there are no temptations at all anywhere, I'll stay safe. Yeah, okay, we need a safe zone, like every car eventually needs to be put in a garage. But the car is also meant to be driven. A ship also requires to be in the dockyard, but ship also has to go out. So like that, there is a time when we retreat ourselves, we retreat so that we can recover our strength, so that we can have a place where there is no agitation due to temptation. But then eventually we have to go into the world. We have our particular services, our responsibilities, our roles. So this section is about that. This section is about how to go about doing that. Now earlier in the previous section, Krishna has used the word param drishtva. So param drishtva, how does Prabhupada translate it? Higher taste. Now it's a very interesting compound word. That what does the word drishtva mean? Drishtva, drishti, vision. So actually this, generally speaking, drishti and swad or rasa, they are two very different things. But when you are talking about a spiritual experience, it's something beyond material senses. So there are different ways of describing it. In general, how does the journey happen? Say for example, somebody is an alcoholic. They are trying to recover from alcoholism. First thing they need to do is, if I'm staying right next to a bar, I have to relocate. Some people say, actually, some people don't just say next to a, stay, their house is not next to a bar is inside their house only. And like they say, oh, if my guests come, for them I won't need it, but for my guests I need it. Well, then one guest will come. That is your own alcoholism. Isn't it? So, okay, you have to create some distance. But an alcoholic cannot live the rest of the life keeping a safe distance from bars. That's required, but the alcoholic has to rebuild the life. Isn't it? The alcoholic needs to have something meaningful that they are doing with the time and the life that they have. And when they have that, then they will be able to better fight off that alcoholism. So it's like, basically, if you consider recovery, just like I talk about offense and defense, so it's like if germs are there, if you take a medical recovery, you take it, if germs are there, first thing is, you have to remove the germs. Now, in one sense, we can never remove all germs from the body. Like all of us have TB germs inside our body. But they are below such a threshold, the TB germs or whatever diseases might be prevalent in the particular part of the world, they are there. They are below such a threshold that they don't cause much threat. Like every country, say Pakistan right now has spies in India, India has spies in Pakistan. But these spies are not creating a lot of damage. Now, can we remove all spies? Maybe it's possible, but sometimes the amount of effort required for that is so disproportionate that in trying to remove all spies, Indians may find that there are 100 innocent people who also get killed. So that's why, with respect to germs, our body itself is quite intelligent. If the germs are below a threshold, the body tolerates that. Otherwise, our WBCs become stronger and they try to fight with them. So the first part is reduce germs. And the second is regain health. regain health or strength or immunity, whatever it is. Especially if somebody has a long disease, there is a whole period called recuperation. Has anyone heard this word, recuperation? Recuperate. Recuperation means the injury is no longer there now, the disease is no longer there, but the body has to still gain back normal functionality. So, like say on the India-China border, China has grabbed some territory, and they grabbed some territory, that's one thing. But India can always attack and grab the territory back again, if India were strong enough. But after they grab the territory, and then they build things over there. Maybe they build a hospital, they build a military establishment, they get people to live over there. Then there's a lot of collateral damage, a lot of casualties that will happen. And then if the land is not just grabbed, but it is populated, there are a lot of activity happening over there. Then attacking it without civilian damage is very difficult. So the thing is that it's one thing to occupy, but the other thing is to populate. The two are very different things. So okay, I don't want temptation in my mind. I get the temptation out of my consciousness. I've occupied it. But after occupying my consciousness, it has populated. What am I going to do? If somebody just says, what is your life's purpose? I will never drink alcohol again. Okay, that's good. But what is the purpose of your life? To never drink alcohol. No, that cannot be the purpose of life, isn't it? You have to have something meaningful to do. So, in America, drug addiction is a very big problem. In India also it is there, but America it's a different kind of drug addiction. What has happened is, there are pain medications which are intentionally designed to be addictive. So I was talking with one, in Columbus I was talking with one boy, very intelligent boy, he studied in IIT and went to America, and in his first year, in the first semester, he got caught in a terrible car crash. Very bad injury he had. He was hospitalized to multiple thigh surgeries and other surgeries. It was very difficult. Among all surgeries, like the thigh surgeries and others are very painful. But he recovered, but what happened? He has to take a lot of pain medication to manage the pain. But then he went inside the hospital with a fractured body. He came out with an addicted mind. And he said that these pain medications are such that, he said, if I don't take it, my body starts trembling and I start feeling dryness of the throat and I start getting blurred vision. So it is not just like a psychological pain, psychological craving, but also physical pain is there. That's what is called as withdrawal symptoms. If somebody gives up something, they experience a lot of pain. So he was telling me that I just feel that my life is ruined now. I can't do anything at all. So then I told him that suppose you didn't have this addiction at all, what would you do? What would you do with your life? He said that, I'm seriously considering changing my field of research. I want to go into biomedicine and especially medicine, and I said I want to develop non-addictive pain medication. So I told him that's a noble purpose. That see, if everyone in life gets pain, now when pain is there are two ways. Either the pain has to be transformed or the pain will be transmitted. That means I am in pain. How is it transmitted? By complaining, by blaming, by hating. Some people, as soon as you meet them, they say, this person did this to me, and this has happened, and this has happened, and this has happened. Now, of course, sometimes some people need to get a burden off their heart, get it off their chest. But some people are like chronic complainers, and they just spread negativity wherever they go. If you look at everyone's life, there is a tragedy in everyone's history. Life is tough. So, pain can be either transmitted by complaining or it can be transformed by purpose or purpose seeking. How can I went through this pain, I don't want others to go through this pain. In fact, this is one main reason why devotees want to share Krishna Bhakti with others. Because life is difficult for everyone, whether you are devotee or non-devotee. But at least with devotion, we know there is some ultimate purpose and we are pursuing that purpose, and that itself gives some relief. So I told him that it's laudable that you are trying to transform your pain into a purpose. So I asked him, how far have you come? He said, how far? I have not even started it. He said that I can barely function for a few hours and then again I relapse. Then sometimes have to be admitted into a rehabilitation clinic. I just can't function at all. I just lie in bed waiting for the phase to go through. So I will not get admission in university. Even if I get admission, I won't be able to study. So I told him, yes, that may be true. At the same time, nowadays with internet and online education, you don't have to get admitted officially into university or physically there to start studying, start working. Says if you have 15 minutes of lucidity means the brain functions properly before the brain gets a fog. Those 15 minutes you do something constructive. You start off, join an online course or take up a book, read it, do it for 15 minutes. And as you keep doing it, what is going to happen is, in general, now his case was quite tragic, but in general, for us we will all have cravings. Craving can be lust, anger, greed. When we compare the graph of craving with time, it is not that all the time we have unbearably severe craving. It's not like that. It is, if you consider the graph of craving versus time, it's like we have a spike, it goes down. Then there's a spike, then it goes down. Then it's a spike, it goes down. It's like this. Now when the spike comes up, it feels unbearable. I want to eat this, I want to drink this, I want to touch this, I want to do that. So now sometimes we center ourselves too much on when this craving comes, I'm not able to resist it. Am I able to resist it or am I not able to resist it? So we could say we have our urges and our urges have surges. So now when the surges come, we need to resist them. And maybe it is possible, maybe it is not possible sometimes to resist. But the key point is that even if we can't resist the urges, we can persist in between the urges. So that same thing, abhyasena ta kaunteya vairagyena cha gruhyate. So here we try to have vairagya. The urges come, it will stay for some time, it will go. But even if we can't, at least at other times we can be doing abhyasa. So to continue the war metaphor, I'll explain this once more a little bit. To continue the war metaphor, when there are attackers, there are two kinds of attackers. There are raiders and there are occupiers. Now, have you heard the word raid or raiders? What does the word raid mean? Like income tax raid, you must all have heard, isn't it? So what do you think a raid means? Yes, so the income tax raid is there, that the officers will come, they will seal the house, they will break the house, they will break the wall, they will create a mess over there. But raiders, when IT raid is there, they won't confiscate the house. They come to search for something. During that time, they have complete control. But they may have the control for 4 hours, 6 hours, 24 hours, 48 hours. But after that, they go away. On the other hand, if the house is confiscated, then that's a very different thing. Then we can't even enter the house. So, generally, temptation, when it comes, is it like a raider or is it like an occupier? Raiders. Yes, you can always say both. But it is especially these surges that are there, they are like raiders. They come very forceful. Like in Indian history, there were some people like Muhammad Ghori and others, they were primary raiders. They came, plundered India, plundered Delhi, plundered a few things. They took a lot of wealth and went away. Now the Delhi Sultanate or the Mughal Empire, Adil Shah, all of those, they were not raiders, they were occupiers. And those who were occupiers, they didn't destroy the country too much. Maybe they destroyed some temples and those things, they did terrible things they did. But because they made it their home, they were not interested in just destroying the whole thing. They wanted to have a kingdom that they could rule, and they wanted the kingdom to be flourishing. So for us, this understanding this difference, that temptation, especially very strong temptation, it comes, it's like a raider. And maybe when it comes as a raider, we can't do anything about it. It may be true. But that does not mean we can't do anything after the raid is over. If you see, many raiders came and plundered India, especially in northern India. But why did raiders keep coming? See, nobody goes and raids a poor country. How many people say, go and raid Somalia? Yeah, no criticism of Somalia. But if it's a poor country, nobody is going to raid a poor country. So what was happening was, while in India, the cities were the centers of prosperity, centers of wealth, but it was the villages that were the sources of wealth. In general, India has a fairly fertile land, not everywhere, but major parts. So there the wealth would be generated, and that would gradually be transported to the cities. So even though the cities were sacked, cities were plundered, but the village infrastructure continued on. Again, the next time crops would come and prosperity would come back. So the point is that it is not that the whole kingdom decided, oh, another king will come and raid us, so what is the use of growing any crops? What is the use of doing anything at all? So for all of us, it is important that there are times sometimes when we will feel temptation is so strong, I just can't do anything about it. Now we will talk a little bit about whether we actually can do something or not. But right at this point, let's assume we can't do anything about it. Like I was talking with this boy in Columbus that, okay, let's assume that when the urge comes for you, when the craving for the drugs comes for you, you can't do anything. But there are phases in between. So during those phases, we need to persist. What does persist means? We need to do something constructive. Something that will be building our strength. So during that time, we can practice Krishna consciousness, we can do our dharmic responsibilities, whatever our studies are there, our family responsibilities are there. We focus on the time when we can do some things. Many times what happens if we become too focused, I'm going to give up this habit, I'm never going to do this again. Then, if we succumb, we become so discouraged that we stop trying to do anything at all. So instead of that, recognize that there are phases. And no matter how badly I fall when the temptation becomes very strong, I am not going to give up trying. At least in between the phases, I can keep making myself stronger. So if at that time also, if say a boxing match is going on, I'll use the battle metaphor again. Say if there's a boxer on the opposite side, and that boxer just bam, heavy uppercut, this person falls back, I feel like blood is coming out his mouth and just knocked down completely. Now at that time, if this boxer is lying down, he wants some encouragement, the boxer should turn to the coach. The coach will say, yeah, you can do it. I noticed that is his weakness, you attack him over there, come on, fight. If the boxer instead turns toward the opponent only, hey, can I defeat you? Never! Surrender right now. So, the person who has knocked us down, we can't expect any encouragement from that person. Can we? That's foolish to expect that. So similarly, it is the same mind from which temptation comes and knocks us down. And then we turn to that same mind and ask, Will I be able to win against temptation? Never! The mind says. That's why you see, first the voice says, come on, eat it, watch it, do it, touch it. And after the same mind, you fool, why did you do it? You're such an idiot. You are such a hopeless, lousy idiot, you will never succeed. Just get lost. You're a loser. So the same mind, which is like playing a double role. First it knocks us down, and then it beats us up for having not knocked down, and then it keeps us down. So that's why, even if we can't resist temptation sometimes, okay, that's okay. But that doesn't mean that we can't resist it all the time. So, this raga and dvesha, we want to restrain it. Sometimes it may be possible to restrain it, sometimes it may not be. But whenever it is, we start doing that. So, this particular incident was about 3-4 years before the pandemic actually, 4.5 years ago. I met this boy. So last time I had gone to Columbus again, I met him. And he said that now he has got into a PhD program. He actually did some recovery. He actually did some studies. So he also started practicing Bhakti. But the point is that he focused on the period in between. He said, okay, sometimes I would just study for 10 minutes, then I study for 20 minutes. Then the more he started feeling that I can do something worthwhile, that then the impetus to fight against the urge also increases. So for us, this param drishtva, like I told earlier, the higher taste is there, but sometimes the higher taste may seem very high. High up, oh, will I ever get to it? So for us, in this journey to the higher taste, first we need a higher vision. Drishtva can mean vision, okay? I can be a better person. I can do better. There has to be a higher vision. And then from that higher vision comes a higher purpose. Okay? If I have a higher vision, I can be a better person, then how do I go about becoming a better person? Okay, this is what I can do. And as we move along that higher purpose, then we get the higher taste. Higher taste, it takes time. So higher vision, then a higher purpose. Prabhupada once asked, Prabhupada, if our purpose is to serve Krishna, then why is Maya so strong? Prabhupada said, it is because your purpose is not strong enough. If your purpose is strong, then Maya won't be that strong. So, we could say higher taste is like we have won the inner war. When we are situated in higher taste, then we won't feel tempted at all. Higher vision is more like we are ready for the war now, we are ready to fight. Higher purpose is we are actually fighting. So let's see how these three things come up. I'll talk about this and then we'll talk quickly about the remaining verses and we'll finish this session. So higher vision, higher purpose and higher taste. Have any of you heard of this statement? We all say it very often. I'm a fallen soul. But unfortunately, the way we say it, what happens is, the fallen becomes so big that the soul is forgotten. I'm a fallen soul becomes, I am fallen. So actually, it is very important to remember that fallen is just a temporary designation. Fallen may be our present condition, but who are we eternally? Souls. Just like to say that I'm an engineer, or I'm an Indian, or I'm a teenager, or I'm a middle-aged person. All these are temporary designations. So we should not identify too much with the temporary designation. Similarly, if we identify too much with the fallen aspect, then we forget that we are the soul. Who is fallen? Actually, the body-mind machine which has a lot of negative conditionings. The soul is always pure. The soul is always a part of Krishna. Mamai vamisho jiva loke jiva bhutaha sanatanaha. Sanatana means no matter how fallen we may be, we are still parts of Krishna. We are still parts of Krishna. So in terms of war, a higher vision means that somebody has to come and tell people, you don't have to remain a slave like this. You don't have to be under their control. You can win. So higher vision is required. So actually, if we study scripture carefully, we will understand that each one of us is a precious part of Krishna. Each one of us is loved by Krishna. And it is not just we who are fighting against our conditionings and our temptations. It is Krishna who wants us to fight and win. Mayai vaite nihataha purvameva. Krishna tells Arjuna that by my arrangement your enemies are killed. Just rise and fight. That applies to Arjuna, but that applies to all of us also. So we don't want to over-identify with this temporary designation. So the higher vision means that we are souls. We are loved by Krishna. We are parts of Krishna. That means we are loved by Krishna. So all this, right now, I may say, we are loved by Krishna, but, I got this condition, that condition. Okay, all that may be true, but still, we are loved by Krishna. Sometimes what emphasis we give, that can make a lot of difference. So suppose some devotee has to be appointed for some service. Maybe that somebody becomes a OC of a overall coordinator of a youth, a center. Now, there may be two facts. That he was unstable. Or rather, he had problems. It could be any problems about this or that. And he is stable now. Now, depending on what you emphasize, if I want to recommend that person, I may say he had problems earlier, but he is stable now. On the other hand, I can take the same set of facts and I say he is stable now, but he had problems. So what happens? If you say the second way, oh, he had problems, maybe he is not ready right now. Isn't it? So I am fallen, but I am a soul. I am a soul, but I am fallen. There's a big difference between the two in terms of emphasis. So which should be our vision? I am fallen, but I am a soul. I am still loved by Krishna. I am still, actually what happens is, Krishna is with me. Sarvasya chaham hridisannivishto. Krishna is with me. That higher vision is, all of this Krishna is with me right now. And Krishna will always be with me. Now from that higher vision, once we have the higher vision, yes, I suppose somebody is a drug addict and they want to get rid of that addiction. And they meet someone who has actually kicked off the habit. They've given it up. And then that gives a higher vision. Maybe I can also do this. This friend could do it, I can also do it. So that's higher vision. Now from higher vision comes what next? Higher purpose. So Krishna is with me. Higher purpose means I will be with Krishna. See, God is always with us, but are we with God? That is the question. That means, Krishna, we all know the metaphor that Krishna and the soul, Atma and the Paramatma are very close to each other. But we are turned away from Krishna. So Krishna is with me means that Krishna is there with me, but I want to turn towards Krishna now. In the Upanishads, there is that Chandogya Upanishad and other places, there is this metaphor of the two birds. Saman vrukshe purusho nimagno nishaya shochiti mahiyamanaha jushtam yada pasyatyam namesam asya mahimanam itivita shokaha. There are two birds. One bird is constantly pecking this fruit. Oh, they're so nice. Pecking that fruit is still bad. But that bird just stops looking for fruits and turns towards the other bird. Then he can be free from iti vita shokaha. He can be free from all misery. So the higher purpose means I will be with Krishna. Now how can I be with Krishna? That the way to be with Krishna is through service. Actually it's two ways. One is internally through remembrance, externally through service. So in one sense, we want to fill our mind with remembrance, and we want to fill our life with service. So bhakti is overall a process of filling our consciousness. It is not emptying our consciousness. You remember earlier I talked about these two phases. One is that China has occupied a particular part of India. Now India may fight a lot and drive China away from there. But if we don't occupy it, then what is going to happen? They will come there again. If, say, occupying is not just physically going there, if there are people living on the border, and if they find that Chinese government gives them more facilities than the Indian government, and they will say, better we will be with China. So it's not just physically possessing, but actually providing equipment, occupying, giving infrastructure, giving facilities. So what we need to do is bhakti. It is not about emptying our consciousness. Emptying our consciousness of material desires. I won't do this, I won't do that. That's not the essence of bhakti. It is filling our consciousness with spiritual desires. The desire to remember Krishna, the desire to serve Krishna. That's what we have to fill our consciousness with. And the more we are able to fill our consciousness in this way, that is what enables us to become free in this battle against temptation. So it's not so much about crushing. Crushing means, sometimes people feel that desires are the problem. Give up all desires. And the wanting to give up all desires is also a desire. Isn't it? We cannot do that. But it's important that we fill our consciousness with spiritual desires. Then when higher desires come up, the lower desires go away. The higher desire means, like say, if there is somebody has a desire to drink, and somebody has a higher desire, maybe I want to study, I want to have a career, I want to serve society in this way, I want to do seva to Krishna. So if the higher desires, when they become stronger, then the lower desires go away. But otherwise, if you're just saying no to lower desires, oh, this is a terrible thing, this is a terrible thing, this is a terrible thing. But if you don't give an alternative, it will stay a terrible thing only, isn't it? So if you see a big difference between World War I and World War II. Now in World War I, Germany was among the countries, Germany was common in both times, but Germany when it was defeated, and after World War II, Japan when it was defeated. Now, when Germany was defeated, at that time, the Allied powers, they came together and they imposed a very humiliating treaty on Germany. They called the Treaty of Versailles. Now, because of that treaty, Germany was completely afflicted by poverty, and every country has its national pride. So yes, they had some Otto von Bismarck and others who were like terrible rulers, and they had led the whole country to war. But they extracted a terrible prize not just from those leaders, but from everyone. And because of that, what happened was, the Germans, they had no opportunity to grow. It was like for decades upon decades, they would just have to keep paying money to the Allied powers for all the damages that were caused during the First World War. And that's why when Hitler came, Hitler said, this is our German national pride. And we are meant to rule. These people are humiliating us, and our kings, our leaders are not protecting us. So he became immensely popular. And once he became popular, he just, it is like a sleeping giant. They were a sleeping tiger. They woke, and then Germany just started going around conquering everyone. So many historians say that the cause of the Second World War was in the First World War itself. Now, of course, that doesn't neglect the fact that Hitler was a tyrant and everything. But still, The Germans had no alternatives over there. Now, in contrast, if you see, America bombed Japan at Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And these were bombs of the kind that had never been seen before. And not only that, even now there are many historians who say that America had no need to bomb because America was already winning. And it would have won without bombing also. So, at that time, in the first they bombed Hiroshima, then after they bombed Nagasaki. And then Hirohito was the emperor who just surrendered at that time. So, in one sense, the damage that America did to Japan was far bigger than the damage that the First World War did to Germany. But did Japan become an enemy of America? No, Japan and America are best allies. What happened was, after Hirohito surrendered, then America came to Japan and America gave profuse aid. Maybe they had a guilty conscience that we should not have used it. Einstein himself said it was a big mistake on my part that I suggested to Eisenhower that you should make the atom bomb. But he said my fear was Germany might get the bomb before us, so we should have it. But even he had second thoughts about whether that bomb should actually be used or not. But anyway, America gave a lot of aid to Japan. And Japanese people got an opportunity to rebuild themselves. And because they had the opportunity to rebuild themselves, they had the opportunity to go towards prosperity, they didn't keep hating America. So the point I'm making is that we may want to defeat our lower desires. Now, did Japan have some people who were evil, who were imperialists, who wanted to go out and conquer everyone? Yes, they were there. The Japanese, when they were coming to India, they were attacking, Prabhupada says that when in Kolkata, bombs would fall. And they were bombing civilian territories. So it is a terrible thing. But the thing was that although those people had to be crushed, those people had to be removed, but there was also given a positive alternative. When the positive alternative was given, Japanese grew. So like that, in the inner war, we have to fight against our lower desires. But it's important to understand, desires themselves are not our enemies. It's like all Japanese, they're not the enemies of America. Like say India, in modern history, India doesn't get enough credit, but Kashmir is a big miracle. The way Kashmir was 10 years ago and how it is now, that it is the way it was changed as border was remarkable. Now, India could have said, oh, Kashmir, it's all terrorists. We just bomb them and destroy all of them. You cannot do that. We don't want to rule a graveyard over there. Isn't it? So there were some insurgents who had to be firmly removed. Although there were protests and opposition, but they were firmly removed. And then gradually, what they call as, I have a friend who works in Kashmir, he was telling me, they have a CBM, what they call confidence building measures. So the Indian leaders went and met whether Muslims or Hindus, whatever, mostly Muslims, especially the Srinagar area. Jammu has more Hindus. We met them and built confidence. Hindus didn't want to stay there because they thought that Muslims will attack us. And the Muslims didn't want to trust India because they thought that we will not grow, we will not flourish. But actually Kashmir has among the world's most beautiful natural scenery and everything. So the tourism has started growing over there, they have got jobs and people are growing. It's not that the whole problem is gone, but the problem could not have been removed by just bombing and treating everyone as an enemy. So desires are not enemies. Desires are like people in a country. So some desires are good. So there are selfish desires, there are self-destructive desires. What we might use as the word material desires. But there are higher desires. There are selfless desires. So these need to be reduced. Now are there some insurgents in Kashmir? Yeah, even though probably they are there. But they are like germs in a healthy body. They are too weak to cause much trouble. Anytime they can become strong and cause trouble, we have to be on the watch out. But these unhealthy desires are there, they have to be reduced. But simultaneously, the higher desires that are there, they need to be reinforced. Not just cultivated but reinforced. So when we say we come in the association of devotees, what happens? At one level, when you come for a camp like this, we are free from most of the temptations of the world. That might be in college, in hostel, all those places. But along with that, we see so many other devotees who are also practicing bhakti, who are enthusiastic. And by that what happens is, our higher desires, this devotee is doing the service here, these devotees are going and doing this over there. Our higher desires get reinforced. So bhakti is more about finding that higher purpose. The higher purpose is the purpose to serve Krishna. Serve Krishna using our abilities, our talents, whatever it is. So once that higher purpose comes, there is the lower desires and there is the higher purpose. So how do the higher purpose come? I mentioned this verse earlier. Philosophically we say that we are parts of Krishna. Mamayvamsho jiva loke jiva bhutaha sanatanaha. We are parts of Krishna always. What does that mean? We have parts in Krishna's plan always. Like suppose somebody is selected in the Indian national cricket team. If we are selected in the team, we must have a part in the team. Now, is the part you are opening batsman, you are a middle order batsman, you are a spin bowler, you are a wicket keeper, you are a fast bowler. Some part has to be there. See, like that, we are all parts of Krishna always. So we always have a part in Krishna's plan. And that higher purpose means we start serving Krishna. We start cultivating higher spiritual desires. To the extent we cultivate spiritual desires, to that extent they will fill our mind and our lower desires will start going away. This 270, I won't recite it now, but let's look at the verse. Most of you know it. With this understanding of higher purpose and higher taste, let's see how it works. So, apuryamanam achala pratishtham samudramapah pravishanti yadvad tadvat kama yam pravishanti sarve sashantimapnoti nakama kami. So here, to understand this verse, let's compare what the verse is saying. Say this is the ocean and this is a river. Now the ocean is spiritual consciousness. The river is material desire. So what Krishna is saying over here is that if our consciousness is large, like an ocean, then material desire coming in is like a small river. It will not affect us. But if our consciousness is small, like a puddle, and then a river comes in, what is going to happen? The puddle will cause the whole consciousness to overflow. And the water will completely overflow here and there will be disruption. So for us, so what does this mean? Say, if we have some higher purpose filling our consciousness, say if I decide, I want to study the Bhagavad Gita, I want to hear these classes on the Gita, and then 3 years from now, I would like to become a speaker of the Gita. I would like to teach Bhagavad Gita to others. Or, I want to learn to do kirtans. This devotee does kirtans so nicely. I learn this, I'll do some practice. I want to do this, I want to do that. Just like we develop a aspiration for a material career, we can have aspirations, we can have spiritual desires. So then, when the spiritual desires are filling our consciousness, that higher purpose is there. So whenever we have some time, okay, let me read the Bhagavad Gita, let me review the notes of this class, let me memorize this verse. That way, we will fill our consciousness with Krishna. And then, while we are memorizing a verse, suddenly we are like, okay, this new movie has been released, let me watch the trailer, let me watch some scenes from it. That's like a desire that comes up. Now when the desire comes up, if we are just bored, we are tired, we have nothing to do, we have many things to do, but we have nothing specific to do. We are not planning anything, okay, let me watch the movie for 1 minute. Or let me watch one trailer. Oh, trailer, let me watch it. Let me see some more scenes. After I see some more 10-15 minutes, then, okay, let me see some review of the movie. Then we spend half an hour, 1 hour. Then we say, is there somewhere pirated a movie is available? Let me get the full movie and watch it. So like that, what makes it 1 minute may end up becoming 10 hours. How does that happen? If our consciousness is like a puddle. Originally, if I am idle, then what happens to the ideal mind? Yes. See, during our downtime, during our idle time, our mind works overtime. So, now that doesn't mean we have to constantly be running around. But that higher purpose needs to fill our consciousness. And that's why when we say I talk a higher purpose, I'll make one more point about this. So what Krishna says is na kama kami. Even if that desire in terms of temptation comes in, if our consciousness is like an ocean, then okay, the desire comes, stays for some time, it will go away. It doesn't matter so much. So that's why it's important that we cultivate a higher purpose. If we consider our beloved Srila Prabhupada, now Prabhupada for much of his life was a grahastha, he was a businessman, and he worked very hard for his business. So he of course studied Shastra while traveling and other times, but still, it was not that he was the most learned in terms of Sanskrit or Gaudiya Vedanta among all his god brothers. No, he was not. Some of his god brothers were sannyasis who took sannyasa at the age of 15 or 20. So Prabhupada, of course Prabhupada was very learned, Prabhupada was very detached when he became detached. But in terms of jnana and vairagya, there might have been other god brothers who might have been more than him also. But what differentiated Prabhupada was his strong spiritual desire. That my Guru Maharaj has told me to preach in the West, and it was that desire that drove him. It was not just the absence of material desires, but the presence and prominence of spiritual desires. So it was, although he had no facility, he had no followers, no money, but still that desire drove him to go all the way to America and then travel across the world. So that is what Prabhupada's example is. Prabhupada had a spiritual desire like no one else. It is that desire that we seek. Once we have that desire, we'll find that we will become so enriched. So when this desire fills our consciousness, so first we want to get the desire into our consciousness, and like I went back to the raiders and occupiers. So for us, we want the spiritual desire to occupy our consciousness. And as the spiritual desire starts occupying our consciousness, even if sometimes material desire rises, it may raid us for some time, but afterward it goes down, we push it out. After some time, the spiritual desire itself will become so strong that even when the raid comes in, the raid won't stay for a long time. We will be able to repel the raid. So what will happen with time is that the surge of, if you consider a graph, the surge will become not so high and not so frequent. And then gradually we will be able to tolerate it and then transcend it. So that is when we get the higher taste. The higher taste, it takes time to come, but higher taste means that in service and in remembrance, we get such happiness that we don't feel the need for sensual pleasure. For material pleasures, we don't feel the need for that. That will take time. It's not going to happen overnight, but it will happen for everyone. So we all pray that this is the stage where we have won the inner war. That means there are no invaders who can come in, and those who are insurgents from inside, they also have been driven out, or they have been made negligible. Yesterday it was mentioned that as long as we have body, we may have karma. That may be true, but if we have a higher purpose, and if we have a higher taste, then even if that desire comes up, it won't stay for very long, it won't trouble us. So this whole journey begins with higher vision. So regularly when we hear Shastra, we get the higher vision. And then from there we need to translate higher purpose. That okay, what can I do? Prabhupada used to say that how do you know you are Krishna conscious? He says if you go in front of the deities, if you feel that Krishna is asking you, what are you doing for me? then that is Krishna consciousness. That we have a personal relationship with Krishna, and each one of us is meant to do something for Krishna. So what are you doing for me? We feel Krishna asking us that, and we feel responsible to answer that question. That is the higher purpose. And from that higher purpose, higher taste will gradually come. So I'll summarize what I discussed today. We talked about the inner war. The third part was how we can be on the offense, not just defend, but we can be on the offense and win. So I started by talking about 264, Raga and Dvesha. So Raga and Dvesha, they will be there, but we need to have a vidhi. We need to have a strong vidhi, a strong direction, strong guideline, strong instruction, by which we won't be distracted. And then prasada madhigachyati. Prasada means we'll get the purification by which we won't feel any more tormented or troubled. So in that connection, that journey, how do we get to that journey? We discussed that the Raga and Dvesha, when they come, sometimes they may be very strong. There will be surges in the urges. So we try to resist the surges, that is the Vairagya. But even if we can't resist, we make sure that we persist in between the urges. And how do we persist in between the urges? I talked about three stages over there. First we start with higher vision, param drishtva. So higher vision is that I am a soul, I am a part of Krishna, I am loved by Krishna. I may be fallen, but still I am a soul. So the focus should be I am a soul, I am a part of Krishna. And then that means we have the potential for purity, no matter how impure we are right now. That from that higher vision, that means that God is with me. And the next part is I will be with Krishna, I will be with God. So how do we do that? From higher vision comes higher purpose. So higher purpose means that rather than focusing on saying no to material desires, our focus is on yes to spiritual desires. That we find out how can I serve Krishna? What can I do in the service of Krishna? We find out, we fill our consciousness with service of Krishna. So it's like if our consciousness becomes like an ocean, then the river coming into the ocean of our consciousness won't disturb us. That is how we get to the higher taste. And higher taste means that the lower desires no longer trouble us. That they may still occur, but they won't trouble us because we are so filled with higher desires. And that way, each one of us can win this war against temptation. So we want to give ourselves, it is a positive alternative. Not just say no to all desires, just like the UK tried to crush Germany and Germany just hit back hard. But America, it did crush Japan, but then it helped it to rebuild. So India did crush the insurgents in Kashmir, but it helped Kashmir to rebuild. So like that, they have to crush certain desires. That is selfish, self-destructive desires. But then we can't crush all desires. We have to nourish our spiritual desires. And that's how we'll be able to eventually win. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Are there any quick questions or comments? Yes, please.
I suppose we are working in an office, and in our office, some person of a different sect, he also does prachar. We are being trained to missionary, spreading Krishna consciousness, and they also have learned something from somewhere, which is ending to our philosophy. That means they don't want this God consciousness to prevail over them. And that person is just sitting next to me. And I can't concentrate on my work. And because he also speaks something and I just can't take him in, and this thinking goes in my mind. So what should I do this? And our officer, he says that and but still he does not mend his ways. So what should I do, and what should be our reason for such people who are
Okay, so it's a good question. Say कि if somebody is following some other path and teaching, propagating that, so what do we do? See, everybody has free will, and everybody, based on where they are in their spiritual journey, will find some things convincing and some things not convincing. So Prabhupada's own family, Prabhupada inspired the whole world to become devotees, but Prabhupada's own family, they were pious, but they didn't become devotees. Prabhupada stayed with his Dr. Mishra in the yoga studio in New York. From there, Prabhupada found people and they preached to those people. But Dr. Mishra never became a devotee. So we can't really control who will or who won't become a devotee. It is not just philosophy that convinces people. So over a period of time, we need to learn to live and let live. So generally, if we don't encroach on people, over a period of time, people will also not encroach on us. If we try to preach to them, then they will also try to counter and preach to us. But then, if you see that this person is already fixed in their path, then you can tell that, you have found your path, I have found mine. Let's not spend time talking about this, because it's only going to agitate each other. It's not that I am likely to change my thoughts. It's not likely that you are likely to change your thoughts. So we are working here. Let's focus on our work and move on. And who knows, in future we may find some similar ground that we work on. But don't see it as a personal threat or a personal failure if you can't convince him. Because it's not like that. That just because sometimes in the early stages of our bhakti, we strongly feel that if we can't succeed in proving our philosophy to someone, then we feel internally insecure. Is my philosophy actually right? It's not like that. There are many different philosophies in the world, and different people follow different things based on their convictions. So we try our best. If it doesn't, then just live and let live. And over a period of time, we may also learn to find some good in them. They may also learn to find some good in us. But overall, live and let live. We need to become a more powerful preacher then. You understand philosophy more, understand the reasons more, understand how to present it attractively. But otherwise we can't control. It is that everybody has free will, and Christians are converting, and they are converting far, far more than any other Hindu groups or any other spiritual teachers might be converting. Actually, such a situation now, there are many churches in America which have their chief priests who are from India. So in the past, India was their main ground. They had long ago decided that India is the main ground for conversion. They call harvesting of souls. So they say Africa and India, but India is much more peaceful than Africa. Because Africa is very polarized. Our 55% of Africa is Christian, remaining 40% is Muslim, and they can't really convert the Muslims. They try to convert the Muslims, they will not exist themselves. So, so they found that India is the most hospitable. China also has a huge population, but China they had to go illegally. But that was old news. Now they're saying India is going to be the best source of our future preachers. And that many Indian young people are excited by that. They said, in the past their promise was, if you we'll go to a village, and if you make 50 Christians, 50 people in your village Christians, then we will fund and build a church in your village, and we will make you the head of that church. Now they are saying, and our numbers may be varying, but if you convert a XYZ number of people, not only will build a church for you, we will take you to America and make you a head of a church in America. This is like, there's a dream come true for Indians. So whether they are converting because of love of Christ or love of America, who knows? But the point is, a lot of people are doing a lot of things. And we need to increase our vigor. We can't get caught in one person doing this and one person doing that. So some people may attract some people. But by seeing their vigor, we can be inspired. And whatever you say, I have seen many Christian missionaries, extraordinary dedication they have. Their philosophy might not be great, and there are of course some people who are quite deceptive and things like that. But there are many who are very hardworking. Somebody comes from America, they have lived in prosperity, and they go into some remote village in Andhra Pradesh, and they spend their entire life over there. And actually right now, the Bible has been converted into more Indian languages than the Bhagavad Gita has been. It's a shocking statistic. I'm not talking about Bhagavad Gita commentary. Simply the original Bhagavad Gita also. And objectively speaking, the Bible is a far bigger book. The Bhagavad Gita is a very small book, which is considered 700 verses. So, they have worked very hard. And they are driven by their sense of mission. And what we need to do is, we may not be able to help a particular person, because that's not in our control. But by seeing others preaching, we can get the vigor ourselves. Now specifically, if we are encountering a particular philosophy again and again and again, then we may want to study that philosophy, consult with some devotee who is expert in that particular philosophy, and find out how to address that. But if that's not the case, then we just focus on presenting our wisdom, and there are a lot of people who will take it up. Now, there are so many people, if they come to know about what Krishna consciousness is, they will become attracted. So we need to reach out to people more and more. That's what we can feel inspired by seeing what others are doing. Yes, there's a lot of work to be done, and it is good to be agitated in this way. Sometimes when we are in Rajoguna, we will be agitated by something or the other. If we are not agitated by seeing others preaching and wanting that I should also be preaching, then we'll be agitated by Maya. Like, if we are in Rajoguna, we can't be peaceful, even if we want to be. If we are in Rajoguna, being peaceful will be boring for us. we want to be agitated, in the sense that we want some excitement, some stimulation, some challenge in our life. And if we don't get it in the domain of Krishna consciousness, we'll seek it elsewhere. So take that as a challenge, learn the philosophy more, and then whether these are these particular people or other people, we'll be able to reach out to them. Okay. So, quickly, 1 or 2 questions we'll take.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Thank you very much for the wonderful classes, Prabhuji. Prabhuji, you mentioned this fallen point. So, we hear in this Guru Puja that Sri Guru Karuna Sindhu Adhama Janar Bandhu, and महाप्रभु के बारे में भी सुनते हैं कि वो पतित पावन है. लेकिन प्रभु जी, जब फॉलन की बात आती है तो इफ़ वी आर टेकिंग इन दिस राइट स्पिरिट, देन वी आर एबल टू टेक द शेल्टर ऑफ द लॉर्ड. बट इफ़ वी आर लाइक फॉलन एंड along with that we are duplicitous also, then that duplicity doesn't allow us to take the shelter of the Lord, and we go away from the Lord, we go away from the devotees. So like डुप्लीसियस हैं तो फिर हमारा क्या हो सकता है, मतलब फिर उस केस में हम क्या कर सकते हैं गुरु जी, फॉलन होने के साथ साथ?
देखो, डुप्लिसिटी इज़ अ वेरी स्ट्रॉन्ग वर्ड. I'm not sure. There can definitely be people also duplicitous, but see, if there is an internal external difference, that means I feel one way but I act another way. There could be many reasons for that. I have a whole class on this, but I'll quickly explain. One is, as you say, duplicity. That I act as if I am your friend, so that you will trust me, and then I'll stab you in the back. Like somebody acts as if they are a very sincere devotee, they're a very advanced devotee, and then people give money or people enter themselves and they mislead and exploit them. That is duplicity. Where there is not only the difference, we are maintaining and increasing that difference. That means we create a bigger and bigger facade of purity, while internally we are scheming more and more. या अभी इसको यहाँ तक पकड़ लिया, यहाँ तक फंस गया, अभी इसको ऐसे फंसा देगी. So that is duplicity. Now, sometimes there may be internal and external difference because of apathy. Apathy मतलब क्या है कि I just don't want to, like the parents are devotees and the child has become a teenager now. A child doesn't want to go to the temple. But he knows that my parents will get very angry with me, they will chastise me if I don't go to the temple. Child comes to the temple, but it's just for show. It's just so that for show, it's just like a ritual. He's not interested. It's not that he's pretending to have interest. He just has no interest, but externally he's going. So we can say that is good, at least the child respects the parents. But from apathy, it can go toward duplicity. But then the difference can also be because of culture. Say, if somebody is senior to us, if our parents, if our elders, somebody has done something which is really making us angry. Now, still, if they are elder to us, we won't yell at them. We'll still try to be polite. That's culture. Now, here, we are trying to reduce it. That means, okay, right now I'm angry. Let me calm down, and I'll express my concerns. I'll try to deal with it. So this is not hypocrisy. So similarly, it could be out of discipline. Culture is more like an ingrained habit that has become discipline. Say for example, on Ekadashi, we get the urge to eat some delicious food, which is grains. But I'm not going to eat it. The desire is there, but if you're not eating it, that's not duplicity. That's discipline. So, here also, we are aiming to reduce it. At least the aim to reduce is there in both these cases. So, if this is not duplicity. But if somebody is there who is actually trying to at this level, where there is duplicity or hypocrisy or whatever, where we are not even trying to change the internals, then that is a bad thing. Then what do we do at that time? Then we need to at least find some devotee with whom we can talk about it. Some devotee, and we talk with that devotee and tell them how we can overcome this particular conditioning, this particular tendency. Then we say duplicitous person will never talk with anyone. That's also true. But then it has to begin somewhere. Okay, why am I thinking that this external thing will give me so much pleasure? And is it really true? And it's an internal thing that is I'm keeping deep inside, concealed within me. Is it actually giving me the pleasure? Is it only causing me torment and guilt and frustration? Because when we keep that internal hidden, it takes a price for us. So either we seek association with whom we can get some guidance about how to deal with it, or it can be introspection. So just to conclude with the war metaphor, say some general is fighting in the war and is leading the team, leading their army to victory, and the general gets injured. There's a severe wound, and the general can barely walk. But still, the general controls all the pain, tries to restrain it, and keep fighting, and keeps leading others. Now, is that duplicity? No, that's courage. Now, of course, the general cannot continue it for the rest of the life. Sooner or later, the general has to tell, I got this wound and it needs to be treated. A general doesn't necessarily, if the general conceals the wound in front of the general soldiers, and then goes to a doctor and tells this, and the doctors decide, we are not going to tell anyone. So is that duplicity? Not necessarily, that could be strategy. Because the general soldiers, if they come to know that the general is wounded, they may become confused, they may become demoralized. So to protect their morale, they may not say that this general is injured. But if the general has died, and you don't tell the soldiers only, then there's no chance of bridging it now. So then it would become duplicity. So for all of us, we sometimes become wounded, and we all sometimes have to put up a face, which we in public we often put ahead our best face. But sometimes some devotees say that what we are in private is the real person. I won't say so. It's like the real person is somewhere in between what the face we put up in private, put up in public, and how we act in private. Often in private, what comes out is our worst self. And what comes out in public is our best self. And our actual self is somewhere in between. So, sometimes we may have to, as a matter of responsibility, we may have to act as if we are purer or wiser than what we actually are. That's not duplicity as long as we are taking care of it. We are taking care of it. What does taking care of it means? Like a general who is wounded may still act as if I am not wounded. But if the general is actually wounded, there has to be a time when the wound is to be treated. So like that, we need to have time to treat ourselves. Okay. So thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki, Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki, Thy Gaur Premanande. I pray that all of you in your particular wars find the strength, the resources to win the war against temptation, and I seek your prayers that in my wars also I can continue fighting and winning. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. So let us thank Prabhuji from a crowd of